Hello class, today I will be explaining how cells create protein through protein synthesis. Proteins are very important because they create the foundation to build structures in the body and they carry out many bodily functions. And I know this sounds complicated, but a way that I will try to explain this in simple terms is protein synthesis is your cells making meal prep. So DNA is the recipe, mRNA makes a copy of the recipe, and it cooks it up into a protein. So in other words, DNA makes RNA, and RNA makes protein. Let's break it down. First, let's start off with the central dogma. The central dogma of biology is basically the rule book. It describes how information flows in a cell. It says that DNA stores the instructions, RNA copies and carries the instructions, and the proteins are the final product. So the first step of this whole process is called transcription, which takes place in the nucleus, as you can see here. And I like to think of it as a cell's library. So the DNA unwinds with the help of an enzyme called the RNA polymerase, as you can see with this pink little thingy. A pairs with U and C pairs with G. It fits together like a puzzle piece. So one strand of DNA is copied into the messenger RNA, which is also called the mRNA strand. So I like to think of this process as taking a screenshot of a recipe rather than having to carry out the whole cookbook around. So the DNA stays safe in the nucleus, and the mRNA goes out into the world, which is the cytoplasm. But this picture is not to scale, though. It's just for reference. So after transcription comes translation, and this takes place in the cytoplasm of the ribosome. The ribosome is basically the cell's ultimate hibachi grill. The ribosome reads the mRNA instructions in sets of 3 letters called codons. Each of these codons tell the ribosome which amino acid to add, and amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. So this is kind of like similar to telling a hibachi chef which ingredients to add. Okay, and then after transfer RNA brings the amino acids to the ribosome. So kind of like an Uber Eats driver bringing your food delivery to you. And as you can see, each tRNA matches up with a specific mRNA codon. It lines up the amino acids in the correct order and it creates a chain. You can see it, stamping in this little animation. And then these chains of amino acids fold into a unique shape to become a functional protein. And the shape of the protein determines the job that it will have in the body. So if we have a misfolded protein, then we have really bad news because when protein synthesis goes wrong, it can cause diseases or illnesses. And one example is albinism. So albinism is caused by mutations of DNA, which stop the cells from making something called enzyme triosinase. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but this enzyme is needed to produce melanin. And as we know, melanin is the pigment which is responsible for the color of the hairs, eyes, and skin. So as a result, individuals with albinism have very little to no pigment in their hair, skin, and eyes. And although it might look intriguing, this leads to increased sensitivity to sunlight, a higher risk of sunburns, and some vision problems. And 1 in 70 people carry this genetic mutation, but only 1 in 20,000 people go on to have albinism. And this mutation affects all genders and all ethnic groups at an equal rate. So far, there is no cure for albinism. So just as a little recap, DNA is the original cookbook, the original double helix, and then mRNA is the screenshot of the recipe. It copies the recipe, and then it leaves the nucleus to go to the cytoplasm ribosome. And the ribosomes act as the chef's hibachi, where the proteins are cooked up, and the tRNA is the Uber Eats driver with the anticodon, delivering the correct amino acid or ingredients. And amino acids are the ingredients which make up the proteins, and there are 20 different kinds of amino acids. So, in conclusion, protein synthesis is the cell's meal prep system, basically. The DNA carries the instructions, RNA copies the instructions, ribosomes and tRNA translate the strand with amino acid, and the end product is a protein. So when protein synthesis works right, we survive and we thrive, and when it doesn't, like in albinism, we see how critical proteins are for our health. So to wrap it up, your cells are working harder than us during finals week just to keep us alive, and that's on protein synthesis. Thank you for watching.